Hello and welcome to What It Takes. I'm Tom Landon. Since the arrival of the pandemic, all educators have had to learn a lot of new skills, and online learning has become a part of almost all educational experiences. My guests today have been helping educators navigate this brave new world. Katie Fielding is an instructional technology coach at Woodbridge High School in Prince William County, where she works with teachers to improve their technology skills. And Stephen Sproles is the professional learning coordinator with my former employer, Virtual Virginia, which is the state's public online school. He's also one of the best teachers I know, either online or in person, and he served as my mentor when I became an online teacher in 2007. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much.
You guys are here because the VSTE conference, the Virginia Society of Technology and Education, is that correct? Is here at the Hotel Roanoke. So I'm really glad that both of you who don't live in Roanoke will be able to be here. Before we get started, I just want to ask you guys, sort of what brought you to where you are. So Stephen, we'll just start with you. Sort of, how did you become the professional learning coordinator at Virtual Virginia?
How did I fall into what I'm doing now? Well, I started teaching for Virtual Virginia back in 2006 when the program got started. It grew out of the Virginia Satellite Education Network, we were already providing distance education through satellite, and the program was moving to deliver education online. So I interviewed and started at that time back in 2006. Taught full-time for about 15 years. And then had the chance to transition into professional learning coordinator. So that brings me to today.
And educational technology has been something you've been a part of.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, right from the beginning. I had quite a bit of a learning curve at the start, just in terms of creating content, editing content, all that good stuff. But been quite a bit of a journey, but that's really what we're all about now, is helping teachers produce good content and for the best outcomes for their students.
And Katie, I know Stephen really well, which puts me at a little disadvantage with you, but I know you're in Prince William County, and tell me about your educational journey.
Yeah, so I was a science teacher for 13 years at the high school that I'm a coach at now, and 5 years ago I transitioned into the coaching role. And I had a lot of fun with it, and then fortunately a colleague nominated me for the VSTE Coach of the Year in 2019, and I won. And that kind of put me on a path of doing a lot more presenting and working with Stephen. And and so that's kind of where I am today.
That's great, that's great. And Stephen, you have been a virtual teacher now for a long time.
Yes.
How has that changed since you started as a virtual teacher in 2006?
Oh gosh. At the start, for me, virtual teaching was, I had this idea that, good teaching was what I was doing in the classroom. And I really just wanted to replicate that. I just wanted to take technology and see what I could do as far as, I'm doing good things in the classroom, let's try to use technology just to recreate that. And since that time, I've really tried to think about using technology to expand on that. What are some of the ways that we can really leverage the technology to go beyond just replicating what's happening in the classroom? And that's really what our focus at Virtual Virginia is about now, is helping teachers learn how to blend, how to really blend their resources that they have online and some of the great things that they're doing in the classroom as well. So I think that's been one of the biggest things for me.
And one of the things I should say is that there is a program, professional learning program through Virtual Virginia and VSTE that's called VIBE, which is Virginia's into blended learning, and it's helping teachers learn blended learning skills. So Katie, I'll just ask you, we've now said blended learning several times.
Yes, blended
The average
learning.
person probably doesn't know what that means. So what is blended learning?
Yeah, so blended learning is a mix of traditional in-classroom or person-to-person or person-to-paper or person-to-content learning, and then also some online learning, so using technology for the learning. So it's just using both of those in tandem in a classroom. There's different models of blended learning, like a flipped classroom where someone might do the primary note-taking and learning at home and then come in and apply it with the teacher. Or a station rotation where they might rotate through several stations in the classroom, or a playlist model where a student really works at their own pace, really personalized through the learning that they're going to do.
And I guess as a result of the pandemic, which we'll talk about, reference several times during this conversation, I'm sure, all teachers had to get a little bit better about technology. As an instructional coach, what's your day look like when it, and we'll talk about what it looked like in the pandemic, but an ideal day, what's your day look like?
An ideal day is I'm going into classrooms and working with teachers, modeling a lesson for them, co-teaching with them, giving them feedback. That's like my ideal day. is what my normal day is a lot of, doing that, but also a lot of triage for technology issues, answering simple questions, giving teachers like those quick wins so that they can feel confident in the classroom.
Right.
So we do the same thing, it sounds like. There's
Yeah.
a lot of,
Yeah.
that ideal day thing, it's very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, what your day starts out like versus what your day ends
Well,
like.
yeah.
That's very
Expectation.
different when you go through it. And Stephen, you work for Virtual Virginia, and Virtual Virginia has traditionally been, if there's a tradition at Virtual Virginia, changes all the time, but has traditionally been an online school, an online course provider where you've got
Right.
teachers who are teaching classes. But in recent years, Virtual Virginia has expanded that to help even those students who are not enrolled in a Virtual Virginia-led course.
Absolutely.
So talk about what that meant when Virtual Virginia went from having its own group of teachers who were just teaching their content to now you're serving
Expanding
all
and-
teachers in the state.
Absolutely. Well, we, as you know, Tom, when we were teaching together, it was very much an internal type of thing. That's how I still refer to those times as, internal teaching, as in we were providing the instruction, we were providing the course materials. Mr. S was the teacher, for this course for a student that might be out in a school division. And now we think of that as more complementary type instruction, as in it complements what's going on with school divisions, but it's only one part of what we do at Virtual Virginia. We have an outreach program where we provide lots and lots of course content. Those courses are SOL aligned, they're free to school divisions, so school divisions can, instead of simply signing up a student to go and take the course with a Virtual Virginia teacher, school divisions can actually download that course content, edit it to use as they see fit, and provide the instruction on site with that Virtual Virginia content. So that's our outreach program. There's quite a bit of interest in that all across the state. And that's really a lot of what I do in my role as a professional learning coordinator. When I speak with a lot of folks who do my job or my role in other schools and in other states, they're providing training internally. They're the person who's training, our teachers, the internal teachers. A lot of what I do is that sort of outreach type work because I'm working with school divisions and providing that training on how to use those outreach resources, how to make those edits, how to keep the objectives, but really make the content your own. So it's still your course, but you're covering those Virginia SOLs, you're covering those objectives.
Sure, and Stephen's referenced several times content, which is a word online educators use a lot. But it's really lessons, right? It's really instructional design. When you are working with teachers who may be, especially before the pandemic, were reticent about introducing technology into their classroom, how does one use technology in a classroom? This is a big question, but without it sort of taking over what's happening in the classroom, like really making it part of the lesson, really making it part of what has to be taught.
Yeah, I think that the technology definitely, and to quote maybe the title of Dr. Catlin Tucker's book, has to be in balance. So it's not everything is going to be technology. It's still okay to do some things that are not technology. In fact, it's often better for whatever the purpose of the task or the skill is. But technology can definitely supplement and enhance the engagement in a classroom. It can really provide students some authentic experiences that they wouldn't have without the technology. Whether that's bringing an expert into the class via a web video conference or having them create something that they wouldn't be able to create without the technology.
And sometimes I think for teachers, they think, oh, this is one more thing I have to do. But either one of you can jump in on this, but how does technology make the job of the teacher in many ways easier? Stephen? Or
That's one of the things that we really try hard to work with teachers on, because there can be that fear initially that I have to get used to that technical part. I've got to get used to the nuts and bolts of using a learning management system, for example. But once they get past that, and we do a lot of modeling, we do a lot of Zoom sessions, for example, we do a lot of distance training. We hope to do more face-to-face as things change, hopefully with the COVID situation. But that's what we really try to do, is a lot of modeling to say, hey, we can show you how to do these things sort of step by step. We provide a professional learning network where school divisions can meet with each other and see, how is this working for you? What are some of the best ways that you engage students in your specific situation? But collaboration, I think, is a good, easy way to look at it. Something as simple as an online discussion forum for teachers who are, brand new to using a learning management system. Something as simple as learning to use a discussion forum to facilitate ideas and exchange of ideas between students can be a pretty simple starting point. And you mentioned Dr. Tucker already. I'm a big fan of hers, Dr. Catlin Tucker. Her definition of blended learning is one that I've always loved because it's really simple, it's easy for me to understand and easy for a lot of teachers. It's meaningful instructional experiences online and meaningful instructional experiences offline. There's not a lot of fancy jargon to it. So I like to say to teachers, just submitting a worksheet online is not really blended learning, but it's not really meaningful. But having students do something where they do some cognitive processing, where they exchange ideas, where they reflect, where they comment on each other's work, that is true blended learning. And it can be pretty simple to get started. There are lots of tech tools out there, and Katie is a master at those. I'll let her comment on some of those tech tools that she loves so much, I know.
Yeah, well, you were saying about, how is it going to help them? And I think the efficiency piece initially is like the gateway to getting teachers more comfortable with technology. You show them a few either productivity tools or, which can be an online quiz. Maybe take that quiz initially that they were doing. How can we enhance it and make it online, but also quicker for you to grade?
Yeah, right.
Then that is like the gateway to, okay, that I got comfortable with that. What else do you have for me? And then that's where I get to have more fun and get to show them, all the creativity tools or the formative assessment tools that maybe are just more than a quiz, and how they can bring that in. And I'm right there, like holding their hand.
I just found that the feedback part of it, I think a lot of people think, in online classes, I'm going to watch this video and I'm going to take this quiz, like it is when we are doing driver's ed, at the DMV or something. And what are some ways that teachers can? How does online learning or blended learning still remain really personal when you're turning the focus away from that teacher at the front of the classroom?
Yeah, so we definitely are turning that. It's a student-focused classroom, a student-centered classroom. And I really like to bring opportunities for creativity into the classroom. So there are some tools that I really love, like Adobe Spark, Book Creator, Canva. Those are 3 platforms that integrate really nicely with Canvas. Mm-hmm. And students can create to share their knowledge. Teachers really think about the tools like artificial intelligence, AI, and how that can now write a paper for a student. So if you're trying to just say, like, Turnitin is going to check my work to make sure this kid didn't plagiarize, well, they could have bought a paper, put it through an AI bot, and now it's a completely different paper. So maybe you're not going to catch that. But having them create something with one of these tools where they can't necessarily buy it and copy it, and you see their work in progress, and you're checking that progress and giving them feedback along the way, you're going to know really what the student is learning.
So I came in touch with you through this association with Virtual Virginia and their work with the blended learning training. So I do need to say that the trainings that Virtual Virginia and VSTE have conducted over the past several months and will continue to conduct are also available, shortened versions of them, just sort of ideas of what those trainings are like. We've included those on our educational streaming channel, Blue Ridge PBS Echo, and if you're curious to see some of these blended learning techniques in action, you can actually go to Blue Ridge PBS /Echo and watch some of these trainings yourself, teachers or others who are interested in technology. So these seminars, give me a sense, let's pick one of them, that maybe one that you've led.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what a teacher would learn by watching one of these videos on Blue Ridge PBS Echo, but also engaging in a course through Virtual Virginia Professional Development.
Yeah, sure. For my session that I presented this summer, it was all about creativity. And I shared with teachers ways to manage projects, creative projects with student groups in their classrooms, such as a Kanban board, which is a project management tool that tech companies use, but can really easily be brought into a classroom. And so with a Kanban board, it's basically Post-it notes in different columns, and students, as they complete a task, move their Post-it through the columns. But it's just a nice way to teach students asynchronous collaboration with each other if they're in different spots. So that's the first part that I talked about, is how to get kids to collaborate, then how to give good feedback using Canvas and some of the things built into Canvas like rubrics and the peer review option. I love the peer review option because students can look at each other's work before the teacher sees it and give each other some really honest feedback. You have to create protocols for that feedback because students need to learn how to give feedback.
We all need to learn.
Yeah, we all do, yeah. But so that's an important piece of, having more creative, authentic assessments is getting students to talk to each other about what they're creating. And sometimes it's going to be more asynchronous through like a Canvas protocol, but maybe it's just also face-to-face. And then finally, some creative ideas that they can do in the classroom.
I know that my own educational experience, even all the way through graduate school, was the words group project. To me, were like,
Right.
Another group
project,
where one person's going to do all the work and everybody else is going to get the credit for it. Stephen,
that was you that did all the work.
Oh,
is that right? That's typically,
yes. But in terms of strategies for helping teachers encourage their students to be more collaborative, you've talked about some of the ideas. Anything else come to mind as she was talking about that?
Well, the idea of, I love the fact that we mentioned collaboration versus just group work, because to me group work sort of has that stigma of you're going to work in a group. There may not be clearly defined goals. There may not be, it may be easy for one person to fall into that role of leader / worker and free rider type situation. So a bit of a mind shift towards, okay, we're going to have very clear expectations. We're going to have defined roles. We're going to have formative assessment along the way. It's not simply, let me present this project to you, this collaborative project, maybe throw a tool at you, and then it's due 2 weeks from today, and we'll see what the result may be. That process is a huge part of it. Teaching the process as you go with lots of formative assessments, with lots of check-ins on the way, I think is very critical. And then that way it's pretty easy to see, that students really are collaborating and making it fun. I mean, that's something that's often overlooked, is this truly should be fun. Collaborating, when we collaborate together, we have a good time, and that's something we want to share with students, is that it really shouldn't be, unfortunately, another group thing. This is something that I don't really look forward to. You can have a lot of fun with it. You can create a product that can then be shared with an audience. Having an audience that is going to be looking at this work, whatever it may be, a video, maybe a presentation, whatever, the collaboration may be, that can really help with the buy-in and the participation. So those are some things that I think are pretty helpful.
I think sometimes you will hear a curmudgeon say, back in my day, I went into my classroom and I taught my lessons and it was good, but I can't imagine going into a classroom now without all of the tools of the last 20 years at our feet, and especially now that bandwidth is becoming less of an issue. It's a little easier for kids to collaborate. Some of the things you mentioned, Stephen, Katie, I'd like to hear your thoughts on kind of alternative ways to assess student learning. Our traditional way has been a multiple choice test or an essay, and that was pretty much it, when it came to the test. How else are we working today to let students show what they know?
Yeah, again, I love choice for students. And so I love choice boards of creative opportunities. At the beginning of a school year, I like to offer this or that choice boards, because sometimes choice can be paralyzing. As we all know, when we stand in the grocery store with all of the chip options, right? Oh, what kind of chips do I want today? So if we give the students all the options, it can be overwhelming. So I like to start with small choices and then lead up to bigger choices with bigger opportunities, and have them tell me what they want to do to let me know what they've learned. I really love student conferencing, just talking to students one-on-one or in small groups. That's gonna tell you so much more often than a quiz will. Yeah. Just having them talk to you.
The pandemic, for me, brought out, in stark contrast, this idea of voluntary versus involuntary online students. Traditionally, we'd always had students, if they were in an online course, it meant they wanted to be in an online course.
Correct.
In your own experience at Woodbridge, when the pandemic hit, hopefully we are emerging from emergency teaching now, but what did that look like for you as we worked to get not just those voluntary kids involved, but everybody?
Yeah, I mean, it was a collaborative effort from everyone, students, parents, to make what happened last year happen. Yes, there were a lot of black boxes that people were talking to. But I think there was also, for some students, this was a better option for them. And I'm sure, I'm sure some students have now gone to you because they want to stay in that environment. They found out what worked for them that wasn't working before. So it just takes a lot in good communication to overcome the challenges that we had last year.
And do you feel now has enough time passed yet? Are we out of the emergency teaching mode? Our teachers, do they have the bandwidth to embrace some of these new ideas?
I think that now we've been back in the classroom this year, have gotten used to it, but I'm interested to see what's going to happen as the winter approaches and we have snow days and possibly higher rates again, what the teachers feel comfortable if we get back into that situation.
Yeah. In my experience, I would say the answer is it's kind of messy, as in I think some schools, some students, some teachers have really fully embraced it and said, this is amazing. And then others, if it was used primarily only as an emergency remote instruction tool, and now we're back to, things are better now, we can put that away. That's the real challenge that with our Vibe campaign, for example, that we're trying to combat. We want to say this is a wonderful tool many wonderful tools that you can continue to use to really, really strengthen what you're doing online. And you made a great point about the efficiency. If we can show teachers this is not one more thing that you have to learn, one more thing that's going to take even more time. This is really going to help in the long run. I taught foreign language at the beginning of my career. Didn't have any online tools really except for the occasional YouTube video and that sort of thing. I would love to go back now and say, I can give my vocab quizzes online and not grade paper after paper of just basically spelling errors, looking for that sort of thing. You can use the technology for so much more than that. So that's what we're really trying to help with.
In terms of teachers, I'm just real curious about this in all fields, whether it be manufacturing or anything else, but in terms of teachers, are you seeing a shift as new young teachers come on board who are digital natives? They grew up with a device in their hand. Do you sense that they are easier to turn loose? No?
No. I think they've been raised with technology in their hands, and what's on necessarily a computer and all of those applications, they definitely doesn't mean that they're more savvy. I can still have a teacher come to me and not understand how to go into Chrome settings and just check for cookies. So there's, some.
You can do that? No,
I know. But yeah, so just because they're younger does not, everyone's on an even playing field as far as you may have tech savviness or not. It doesn't matter age, gender, race, it's a variability for everyone.
Really? That's really interesting to me because I would have assumed if I grew up with a device in my hand, then when somebody handed me a device for teaching, it would be easier to.
I think teaching's hard, no matter who you are, age, and then just applying technology as a skill that not everyone has, even if you can use technology. Two different things.
Which leads me right to my next question, which is
boy.
Stephen, in terms of online teaching, what makes a good online teacher? Is it special technology skills, superpowers, or what do you think makes a good online teacher?
Training and technique. No, magic. No, I don't think there's any secret formula, so to speak. I do like to say that good teaching is good teaching. In other words, the goal is to provide the very best learning outcomes for your students, whether that's face-to-face, completely online, in a blended situation. But I think flexibility is key. There are so many different educational tools out there, wonderful, wonderful things that teachers can use, but the goal is always, what are the learning objectives? It's not simply, I can still remember the days when administrators would say, literally, this happened to me, here's a new piece of technology, it's been purchased, use it, That's very cart before the horse kind of thing. As I remember those teaching days with my foreign language, here's a smartboard, use it. And teachers simply had to go, I'm teaching a lesson tomorrow about verbs, I guess I'll use this smartboard somehow. When teachers are willing to do the opposite and say, my objective is this, and I'm going to use the technology in this way to meet that objective, then it's much better that way. So teachers that are more willing to approach it from that perspective tend to be much more successful.
We are down to not that much time left. You've been at VSTE for a couple days. Anything quickly that has you excited, something you didn't know about?
Ooh. Yeah, just really good talks about equity and good talks about reflecting on the classroom practice. That's what the couple things that I've seen the past couple days that I've liked a lot.
Stephen, quickly?
I have to be honest, I attended Katie's session, which was all about Adobe Spark and creativity, and I learned an incredible amount. And I even shared something that I created, which was not fantastic.
That's great. That's
It
great.
It's
was
getting
good.
there.
I'd like to thank my guests for taking the time out of attending a really great conference to visit. Stephen and Katie, thank you so much for coming. I hope today's program has helped shed some light on the pedagogy behind online learning and provided a glimpse into what really good blended learning looks like. If you'd like to learn more about the work that Virtual Virginia is doing to help teachers, visit virtualvirginia.org/vibe/let's. For What It Takes, I'm Tom Landon.